Good evening and welcome to this live Ask Me Anything About Property Investing. My name is Hussain and I'm here this evening for about half an hour to answer your questions around investing in property. So whatever platform you're watching on, make sure you pop a comment on below to ask a question and we'll do our very best to try and answer that for you. We are live on various different platforms, which includes Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. So whichever platform you're watching on, pop a question in there for us to answer for you. Just before you do that, make sure you can see and hear me okay. Just let me know that you can see and hear me okay, and we'll get started with our first question in just a moment. And we've got a few announcements. One of those is that this is the last episode that we're doing in this series. So we won't be doing another one of these for a little while. It'll be next year sometime before we restart this. So make sure you get your question in and answered this evening. Otherwise, we won't be answering it on this format for at least a little while. Yes, getting a few messages you can see in here. So okay, fantastic. So Khalid, let's go with our first question. Sure. As soon as you are ready.
Apparently I'm live on my own Instagram. One moment.
Okay, just whilst he's doing that, so a couple of announcements. I said this is the last in this particular series that we're running right now. We'll be back probably sometime next year on this. We've got a workshop we're running this weekend, which I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a short while. So our first question is on YouTube from Hussain Chaudhry Islam from Scotland. Question: how could you make it easier for people to understand the property market in England compared to Scotland? Are your basic strategies equally effective for both regions? So I would say, Afshan, the thing is the legal process when it comes to buying property and controlling property is very different from England to Scotland. So some things can work in theory, but the actual process and the steps might be different. I focus just on England. So the kind of things I talk about, the kind of things I do, and the kind of things I teach are primarily for the English market, and the rules and regulations for operating within England. As I said, Scotland is a little bit different. Sometimes things work in principle, but I don't necessarily know the details, and I'm probably not the best person to go into detail of how to do some of these things in Scotland. It says I'm not really aware, but the principles are the same. For example, you're looking for somebody that might be a motivated seller, somebody that's keen to sell their property. You'll negotiate a better deal. Things like agreeing to buy a property at some time in the future, renting it for a period of time so you can re-let it at a higher price. You know, all these things in principle are still the same. So let's get our next question up then, Calvin. Already, this is Jamie S. Hi Saj, a supported living HMO let out to a housing association. What are the pitfalls, things to watch out for when purchasing these types of investments? Any advice on due diligence? Thanks. So Jamie, with supported living and housing associations, there are lots and lots of different organizations that will provide care and support for people that need this kind of help. There might be homeless, there might be suffering from mental health issues, there might be drug rehabilitation, halfway houses from prison. There's many different types of organizations set up to help and support people back into mainstream society. And supported living accommodation, particularly HMOs, is really what we're talking about in that particular sector. And as a buyer for these type of properties, if you're purchasing a property with this type of tenant already in the property, really it's the key thing is the lease agreement that's in place and what type of arrangements are in place around that, i.e. the basics are how much you're going to get for what period of time, how long the lease is going to run for, and how much you're going to get paid each month. Those things are simple. Those are kind of things most people look for. The other things that you need to look for are things like is the organization's payment dependent on the number of people in the property? So I've seen this happen a number of times where, say, for example, you've got a 6-bedroom HMO and they're paying you for 6 rooms as long as they've got those 6 occupied, but they're only occupying 5 of them because they don't have 6 tenants. They only pay you for 5. So that's something else you need to look for. Any kind of early exits that the provider could do, i.e. they give you 2 months notice and just leave the property. If they can, then the lease really doesn't mean very much if you've got a 3 or 5 year lease. Often these types of arrangements do tend to run for 3 and 5 years because they're dependent on the funding that they're getting as well. And also there's many tiers sometimes to this type of accommodation. So you might be the owner of the property, and the person that's paying you might be a management company that works with a housing association that's funded by national government, for example. That means you are several tiers down in terms of you getting paid as well. So you want to make sure the people involved in that chain are fairly solid, been around long enough to be able to ensure that you're going to get paid and they don't disappear on you, because unfortunately there's been too many incidences where supported living providers have gone bust. They've disappeared, owning people lots of money. So that's also something you need to be aware of. And something else would be who takes care of the maintenance of the property and to what extent. So, for example, it might be that they've got £100 allowance. So if there's a broken door handle, or the blinds are broken, they'll pay for that. But if, for example, the central heating stops working, they're just going to send that to you as the owner of the property to deal with, or they're going to get it done and send you a bill. So all of these terms and conditions are going to be written within the lease. So really understanding that lease and making sure that you are happy with the terms and agreements in there is the main thing that I would primarily look for. And of course, that's assuming you've already looked at the numbers in terms of how viable it is, what you're paying for it versus what return you're going to get. So for example, if you're paying a premium for the property because you're getting a premium rent, but that lease only runs for 3 years, well, what's going to happen after those 3 years? There's no certainty that they're going to continue, they're going to stay with you. So are you going to be paying over the odds to get that property now, only to find that you haven't actually got a tenant paying a premium in 3 years' time? So there's a few things, Jamie. There's obviously lots of factors to think about, but hopefully that gives you a few pointers there. My apologies for the slight flicker you can see on the screen behind me. We are still trying to figure out some of all this tech stuff on the live streaming and haven't quite got it right just yet. So our next question is from Phil on YouTube. I'm just getting into buy-to-let, and my main advantage is that I have cash ready to buy properties. 300k cash. Do you think I can get properties 15-20% off the buying when buying cash and then refinance most of it out? So Phil, generally that's a good strategy. You're buying for cash. You can negotiate a price because what does that mean? That if you're buying cash, it generally means you can complete quicker than somebody that might need finance to be able to purchase the property. So here's the thing. That doesn't always work well in all markets. So right now in this market that we're in, or just coming out of even, which is a very strong, buoyant market, there's plenty of buyers out there. There's not enough properties coming to market. The most sellers have got plenty of people that are keen to buy their property. So there's fewer buyers that will need to sell the property really fast because it's a strong market. There's plenty of people that can complete the transaction relatively quickly anyway. So you won't necessarily be alone as the only person that's buying for cash. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it and which side of the fence you're on, there's a lot of money available right now. There are lots of people sitting on cash and they are just eager and hungry to buy property. So that means you still have a lot of competition from other people also looking to buy for cash, and they may not necessarily be driving a 15-20% discount off that purchase. They might be willing to pay the asking price or close to the asking price, which means that actually just because you've got money and you can complete quickly, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a great deal. And I don't know where you're based in the country, so £300,000, in one of the northern towns is a lot of money. And as you go down to the southeast, £300,000 is not going to buy you very much at all. So it's a context as well in terms of where you are location-wise as well, and also what the market's doing, how active the market is, how many buyers there are, supply and demand in the market will also determine that as well. But there's many other strategies that you could be using to making sure you're making that 300 grand work really hard, where you can add value. Even if you can't buy the discount, you can build the value onto the property and still refinance, get the money out and go again. Hope that helps. Next question from NASA on YouTube. Complete refurb in Erdington, plan submitted for 5-bedroom HMO, 2 shower rooms, apart from soundproof party walls and bedroom walls, including acoustic ceiling insulation. Any other tips you can give? There is lots of tips I can give. I could spend probably the next 4 hours giving you tips and things that you can do on a HMO conversion. It just depends ultimately what it is that you're trying to achieve. So you're doing a complete refurbishment and plans have been submitted for a 5-bedroom HMO. I'm assuming what that means is you've sent an application for planning to turn the house into a 5-bedroom HMO. I would probably wait until you've got the approval before I start doing the renovation works, because in Erdington, North Birmingham, Birmingham City Council are not fond of lots of HMOs. In fact, they're dead against them. So that means you might have a little bit of an uphill struggle in terms of trying to get that approval. But assuming that all goes fine, you get your planning permission in place, then you do the conversion accordingly. And depending on who it is that you want to try and attract to live in that property. So we have quite a lot of property in that part of Birmingham as well that we own and also manage for others as well in terms of HMOs. And our target market is predominantly professional lets and also blue collar. So depending on the type of property, will attract certain types of tenants to that property, often because their budget means that that's what they can afford. So for instance, we've got properties in Erdington where I'm just trying to remember what's probably the most that we achieve. Probably close to about 700 is the most that we achieve for a room in Erdington, which is quite high. That generally tends to be a really nice, spacious room that's got its own ensuite as well, and probably sofa, TV as well. So it's it's a nice space to get that kind of rent. Now, if you look at the competition, what the competition is doing for that type of property, for example, £500 might be quite the norm for that type of accommodation. So if you want to achieve a premium rent, then you've got to create a premium product. If on the other hand that you're just going to let to say at the lower end of the market in terms of a price point, then the specification can be low and you can get away with that. Your spend and renovation costs don't need to be as much. But if you are looking at the higher end of the market, then 2 bathrooms is probably not going to cut it these days. Probably for the last maybe 5 years, if not longer, we've been doing ensuite rooms pretty much for every single property that we do. That means everybody has their own bathroom, nobody's sharing any bathrooms. And that's where the market's going. So if you look at a lot of the competition, that's what they're doing, but they'll charge better rents as well. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do that, because your tenant type might not be the same, might not have the expectations. They might not even have that much budget to be able to take on a room like that. But if that is the case, you've got to remember in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time, how is your property going to compare to all the competition out there that's got very good quality rooms? Is there still going to be a demand for your type of accommodation? Or you're going to have to spend more money again doing another renovation, trying to bring it up to scratch again. So Nasa, I hope that helps. Hope gives you a few pointers there. I think it was Nasa asked a question. So next questions on LinkedIn from Sunny Kapoor. What's the best way to scale and systemize a letting stroke estate agency business? So I was having a conversation earlier on with one of my mentees on the mentoring call they would have with me, and we were talking about a letting agency or building a letting agency and scaling it up. Now, often with letting agencies, it's the same thing with sales agencies as well. The thing that you need more than anything else is stock. You need properties to be able to let, you need properties to be able to manage, and you need properties to be able to sell. So the thing that you need to get right is a good flow and the ability to be able to get stock in. And that often is somebody that's very personable, a great sales type of person at the front end who's bringing this business in. But then in the back end, i.e. your office, back end office, you need somebody there that really knows their stuff, that's on top of all the systems and the processes and making sure they're getting things done, they're not dropping the ball, and they're delivering on the expectations. If that's happening, you've got those systems in place, then you can scale that business. So building the systems first before you go out and start getting loads of business in is certainly going to help. Now, you can't spend a year building systems and not have any revenue. So you have to have some business coming in to be able to build it. But you've got to think about how many properties can you manage with the current team that you have? How many properties could you let? Then at some point, you're going to get to a capacity point where you now need more staff, more resources to go to the next level. So if you take on another member of staff, you've taken on another salary, 20, 25, 30 grand, whatever it might be, but you haven't necessarily got another 25, 30 grand of revenue and profit to be able to pay them. So it's like a step change that you're doing rather than a smooth upwards curve like this. So thinking about it in that way, 2 key things I'd focus on, as I said. One is the system side of the business. Make sure you got all that solid and right so you can scale and build on that, which is often what a lot of franchises will sell. They'll sell you those systems and processes so you can build that up. And then having somebody brilliant at the front end or several people at the front end who are bringing that business in, bringing in landlords, bringing in vendors who need the property sold. Because let's face it, letting a property to a tenant is very easy. Finding a buyer for a property in this market is very easy. The challenge is finding a vendor that wants to sell the property and wants to list with you, and finding a landlord who wants a property managed and wants to find tenants, and they're going to hand that property to you. So I hope that helps. Just before we get our next question up, as I mentioned earlier on, we've got a couple of announcements. This is actually our last Ask Me Anything About Property Investing for this season. We will start again at some point next year. I'm not quite sure when we'll restart. We're focusing some of our energy into some of the other workshops and things we're running. Our monthly property meet back up and running. We launched last month with a couple of hundred people that were there as attendees, and we'll be back in January. We tend not to do an event in December, so January, February, March will be back to normal. Here's the link just below here. If you want to book onto that, it's 18th of January. There'll be another fantastic event where you can network with other like-minded people, learn from other people about investing in property as well. I'll be sharing some strategies around investing in property and planning your goals for 2022 as well. And then I'm doing a workshop this weekend, this Saturday, where I'll be focusing specifically on smart investors strategies. That's the strategies that smart investors, I believe, will be using in 2022, where the real opportunities are to make money from property. Because let's face it, the strategies that people were using 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago are different to the ones they're using now, and they're probably different to the ones they need to use next year to be able to make the most of the opportunities that arrive. It's really about riding that wave. Where are the opportunities right now? So sometimes people talk about, I'm going to jump onto rent. Yes, you can make money on rent. Yes, that is a strategy, but the best time to have done that was 6, 7, 8 years ago when we first started doing that, because there was less competition, there was more opportunities. And that doesn't mean you can't do it now, but there are other strategies that are working even better right now. So it's focusing on those strategies, and that's what I'll be sharing with you, the sort of strategies that I'm doing. If you want to learn more about that, you can book onto this using this link here. It's this Saturday at our King's Heath office where we'll be running that. So let's get our next question up on the screen when you're ready. This is from Alia on LinkedIn. Is it best to use agency to find tenants and to manage? Well, it's a great question, but it just depends on what you ultimately want. If you don't want the hassle of finding tenants and managing the property, then of course you'd use an agency. And I think using an agency is important, particularly when there's so much compliance that you need to take care of. There's so much regulation that you need to be aware of when you are letting to tenants and managing these properties. And many landlords don't realize there's so many things that you need to do. There's probably about 100 bits of things that we need to do each time we let a property to a tenant to make sure all the things are being done properly and everything's being taken care of. Now, often people don't think about that. They don't think about all those things that need to be done. But of course, it's finding the right agent as well. It's an agent that understands the nitty-gritty detail of doing things properly, protecting you as a landlord, making sure they're finding the best possible tenants, vetting the tenants properly, and making sure these are tenants that are not only going to pay your rent on time, look after your property, but if there's ever an issue, there's going to be something in place to be able to help and protect you as well. For example, guarantors of those tenants. So from that point of view, I think that's really important that you're using a good agent to help you with your business. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. You know, when I started our business in terms of in property, and I started building that business and started building a property portfolio, I couldn't really find what I felt were good agents to be able to take care of the type of properties that we had. At that time, it was mostly HMOs. So in the end, I decided we were just going to do this ourselves. We'll build it ourselves. And we started managing our own properties. And then after a period of time, we started managing other people's properties to help cover the costs as well as the business was growing. And then it just turned into a separate letting agency that we run and operate. And that's always been built on the understanding that, look, we need to take care of these properties as though they were our own. And that's the approach that we tend to take. When somebody cares about the properties in that way, you know they'll be doing the best job in terms of looking after those properties for you. Now, sometimes when you're starting out, it's good to learn what's involved and to do this for yourself, just so you understand, if you are going to employ somebody else to do this for you, exactly what's involved. And I think it's probably better use of an investor's time to go out and find other great deals than it is managing your own properties. But of course, there's a cost to that. You've got to pay for somebody to look after those properties. And often when people are starting out, they want to save money. They might be doing it themselves. To learn, I think, is fine, and to save a little bit of money at the beginning. But it's really important you don't cut corners when it comes to managing properties and finding tenants. Because when you cut corners in terms of finding tenants, you don't vet them properly, you don't take on the right type of tenants, they're the ones that are going to come back and cause you problems in the future. So I hope that helps. I'll give you some pointers there. So just with regard to this event that's happening this Saturday, I think we have about 6 places left. There's only 30 people in the room. Because that's the capacity of the room, that's all that we have. And there's only about 6 seats left for that. Christian, who works in our office, has been speaking to people. And I know it's likely that will be sold out before the weekend. So if you do want to come and spend some time with me learning about what the best strategies for next year and where you should be focusing your effort and energy, then make sure you get booked on that. It's only £97. It's peanuts for what it is that you're going to get in terms of value in return. So make sure you get booked onto that, and I'll meet you on Saturday. I'll be there myself delivering that training. So our next question is from Jack on YouTube, Jack Smith. Hi Saj bro, do you use any your own picks for renting out places, and any tip for good design ideas for bedrooms and bathrooms, colors, etc.? Jack, yes, we do use our own photographs. So each time we finish a property, let's say, for example, a HMO that's done to a very good standard, or a service accommodation, a property that we've just prepared, then we tend to use professional photography. So what that means is we get an external photography professional. We've got great camera equipment all around here. But hey, look, none of us are photographers. We don't know how to get the best out of this kit and the lighting to really get a stunning picture for that property. So we bring in a professional with their own kit. They'll come and take all the photographs. We pay them to not only take the photographs, but then afterwards to make sure they're touching those photographs up to present them in the best possible way. So that way, those photos that you take at that time, essentially your marketing collateral, you can use them time and time again, as long as the property is still looking in the same way. You can use those time and time again in the future when you're reletting that property. When it comes to colors and the staging, again, we tend to work with designers in terms of them coming up with the concepts and the ideas and the themes that we're going to have in terms of how the room or the apartment's going to look, what color schemes we're using on the walls, etc., in furniture, and also in the soft cushioning and the soft furnishings of that property. So once all that's set out and laid out, that's when the photographers will come in and do the photography. And then when we find we come to let the rooms, they let really quick. So I went to see one of my students, one of my mentees on the Inner Circle program a few days ago up in Leeds. He just finished a HMO, really stunning property, absolutely amazing finish on that. And literally within 4 days, he had 4 people lined up to take the property. There's a 5th person as well that taken it, and they'd kind of fallen out in terms of it wasn't the right type of a person for them. So literally within a week of a 5-bedroom HMO, he did 4 other rooms straight away. And that just goes to show that, if you've got the right product, there's always going to be people that want that. And this is at the top end premium rental market in terms of you're charging the highest possible price you can for the best possible product in the marketplace, so that you can be the most profitable on that. So I think if you think about the first impressions that somebody's going to get, that's going to be the photos they see. So I think those are absolutely important. So AC 1-to-1 exclamation mark on YouTube. Any advice on bringing loans for converting a commercial property into flats, first and second floors? I think you mean bridging loans. So with a bridge, you have to remember what a bridging loan does. It allows you to get into a deal for a short period of time so you can then come off at the other end. So what that means is that they'll give you the money to be able to probably do the purchase. You'll still probably need to put some money in yourself as well when you do that purchase. And they get you onto the bridge so you can do what you need to do on that property during that bridge. For example, renovating it, converting it, adding value, converting it to 2 apartments, as you are just talking about here, and then be able to refinance or exit at the other end by maybe selling those to repay the bridge. So bridge is not a long-term loan, it's a short-term loan, often like anything from 6 months to maybe a couple of years, and usually about a year is quite common for a bridging loan. The costs tend to be quite high compared to other types of finance, but it all depends on what it is that bridge is going to enable you to do. If a bridge is going to enable you to do a deal you couldn't do ordinarily and make a great profit, then of course it's worth paying that extra amount of money. And some people will say to me, well, bridging is too expensive, I wouldn't use it. And that might be the case, but if you've got really good deals and you're not able to do that deal without the funds, then bridging can be a way to do that. And there's some great people that we work with. If you want a contact for bridging, reach out to us and we'll connect you with somebody that can help you with bridging. And bridging, remember, is asset-based lending, not individual. So they don't necessarily look at your earnings, your credit check. Primarily what they're looking at is the asset, the money secured against that asset. As long as their money's safe, that's how they tend to lend. So our next question, Jonathan on YouTube. In regards to refurbishment costs in HMOs, how do you go about knowing how much exactly you need without spending too much? Thanks. Jonathan, this is an interesting question. So when we first started renovating HMOs, the first one we created, really it was just redecorating, putting a second bathroom in a house, turning the 3 bedrooms into, well, the bedrooms already exist, those 3 bedrooms, but looking at the reception rooms in the house, turning those into a couple of bedrooms, maybe ending up with 5 or 6 rooms, making sure all the fire safety things are put into place, just the minimum really to make that house share work. And when we were doing that, we weren't spending very much money, maybe 20,000, 30,000 pounds in terms of doing that. Now, as time has gone on, that expenditure has gone up. It went up to about £60,000 for a 6-bedroom house. So what that meant was we were spending roughly about £10,000 a unit. So on a 6-unit house, 6-bedroom house, we'd be spending about £60,000. But over time, that's increased. And our most recent project that we're doing at the moment, that's nearly complete. We're literally down to the last couple of weeks. We'll probably spend about 130, maybe £135,000 on converting that house. Well, I say converting. In fact, this one was already an existing HMO. What we've done is stripped it right back to brick, redesigned it, and effectively completely reconfigured how it was to make it work much better than it was before, created more space in there as well, all ensuite rooms, really modern living. And, we're spending more than twice what we were spending just a few years ago on each house, but the rents that we're charging are significantly higher as well. And these things we just learn over time. So there is no right or wrong in terms of how much you spend to set up a house like this. But what you need to think about is, as I talked about earlier on, is who are you creating this for? Who is it ultimately that's going to live in that property? What expectations do they have, and what is it that they're looking to pay? What are your competitors doing? What else is available in the marketplace? And what's it cost to create something like that to work for you? And that's really where you need to start, rather than, oh, my budget is this much, I'm just going to spend this much. You've got to look at what is it you need to create, how much do you need to spend to create that? And if you can't afford to do that, what things can you compromise on that may not necessarily massively impact your rent? So for instance, one of the things we do, we put TVs in every single room in the house. When I say every single room, every bedroom, the communal space, we've got TVs everywhere throughout the house. And yes, it's a little bit of a cost, but if you wanted to sort of cut corners and you took those out, would that affect the rent? Probably not massively. You wouldn't probably have much of a rent reduction, but it just makes the properties more desirable, more rentable, the rental that much more quicker. So in short, I can't give you an exact number in terms of how much you need to spend. It just depends on what is it you're trying to create, what the extent of the works are. But there's some great videos on my YouTube channel about HMOs and HMO costs. Just have a look at those and you'll find there's a lot more detail there as well. Hope that helps, Jonathan. Let's get our next question up on the screen. This is from Iftikhar Chowdhury on YouTube. Hi, Saj. First of all, congratulations and well done. My question is, can you advise the steps to take to convert a semi-house into 3 apartments, i.e. names of lenders, etc.? Well, if you're taking a standard house, Iftikhar, which is, say, a family house, and you want to convert that to 3 apartments, the first thing you need to do is get planning permission to be able to do that. You can't just convert it. There's no permitted development rights to be able to just convert a house straight into apartments. It might be that it was previously converted to apartments at some point and you're now renovating and improving it. So the conversion is already done. You need to check that they got the right building control regulations, sign-offs for that, and also the relevant planning permission. There's many times you'll come across properties that don't have those things in place, and that's not good. As long as you're buying at a really good price and you know how to fix those problems, yes, it can be worth exploring. But if you're just starting out, you really don't want those kind of problems. So you want to make sure that you've got consent first to be able to do that in terms of planning. And then, of course, you've got to comply with building regs, building control when you do the conversion, to make sure you comply with all the fire safety regulations, the sound insulation, etc., to make sure all those things are right. And once that conversion is finished, and if you're looking to keep it and refinance it, which is, I get the impression that's what you're probably looking to do, then you'll probably look for one of the specialist lenders that will lend effectively either a commercial mortgage on all 3 of those on one freehold. Effectively, you've got a freehold building and 3 apartments in it. Or your other option, which sometimes people will do, is they create 3 separate leases. So they issue 3, say, 100-year leases, and you keep the freehold, but the 3 leases have to be issued into a new entity. So, for example, if you purchase them in your personal name, the building, the leases might be issued to a company, and then you can take out individual mortgages on those 3. So your refinance option is either 3 separate mortgages with 3 new leases, most probably, or probably the other option is 1 commercial mortgage across the freehold building. They're generally your most common options there. And if you need a good broker to help you with that, again, just reach out to us. We can connect you with a good mortgage broker that can help you with that. So let's get the next question up on screen. This is from Omar on LinkedIn. What temperature do you set the heating in your HMOs? So our HMOs, I think they run between 20 and 22 degrees. Generally about 21 is where they are. And then those temperatures will fluctuate throughout the day. So for example, if most of the people at work during the day, then having the house heating at 21 degrees, personally, I don't think it's any point in that because there's nobody there. So what you would do is during the day, that temperature will probably drop and it will boost up when people are there. So for example, in the morning when people are getting up or going to work, or when they get back in the evening. Now, we never turn the heating off. So all we're doing is the heating will fluctuate in terms of how much heat is needed to try and keep the property at the temperature so it's comfortable. And then, of course, the tenants have the flexibility to be able to adjust that temperature, to either turn it down or to boost it up as and when they might need as well. So I hope that helps you with that, Farouk. Just before we jump onto this question here, just a reminder of a couple of announcements. Firstly, this is the last Q&A that we're doing for this season. Then we'll be restarting again at some point next year. There's a number of the workshops and things we're running that we're focusing our time and effort and energy on. The next property meet is on the 18th of January, which is the monthly meeting that we're running now in Birmingham. The launch meeting, we had 200 people there. I'm confident we'll have similar numbers at most of our meetings going forward. So you should book your tickets nice and early for that. It's only 10 quid. And you get an opportunity to network with like-minded people, learn not only from other people, from myself, and great speakers as well. And in January, I'll be focusing on how really to goal set and get the best results you possibly can out of 2022. And then this Saturday, I'm also running a workshop, Smart Investors Strategies. And really what I'm doing is focusing on what are the strategies that people should be using in 2022. What are the best strategies to be using? Because in property, strategies evolve all the time, ones that produce the best results, and we're always changing in terms of improving our game, looking at where the best opportunities are going forward. And that's what I'm going to be sharing. That workshop's only for a maximum of 30 people. I think it's 6 tickets that we have left available for that. So you can book yourself onto that. That's £97 for that, and that's this Saturday. And all these events are in Birmingham. So if you're going to ask me when I'm going to run an event in London, I have no intention of running an event outside of Birmingham, because this is where I'm based. This is where we run our events. So if you want to learn from me, you need to make the simple effort and come and see us in Birmingham. Lots of opportunities to learn from us there. Let's get that next question up, please, Cal. This is from Sadiq on YouTube. When you source and package deals, do you follow the purchase through to completion, or is your job as a sourcer over once you've sent the details and received the payment? So Sadiq, it really depends what it is that you're trying to achieve. So really, I tend to, personally, I break down the role of a sourcer and a packager as 2 different things. Sometimes people use different language and there's different interpretations for what this means. So in my mind, when you're sourcing, what you're doing, you're going out, then you're finding great opportunity. You're finding a deal that somebody wants. That's the sourcing side of it. The packaging side, what you're doing is you're overseeing that all the way through completion, as you just touched on now, to the point that your buyer gets the keys in their hand and hey presto, they've now taken over that property. Now, many times deals will collapse, they'll fall out of bed, they'll fail, they won't reach completion for many, many reasons. And most of them may not be to any fault of yours because you've already done the work you need to do. It could be that it couldn't raise the finance, it could be there's issue on the survey, it could be the seller changed their mind, it could be the seller was offered more money, you didn't secure it properly. Whatever it might be, there's many reasons the deal could fail. So by sourcing a property, just by introducing somebody to a property and say, here you are, give me £500, that's it. You know, it's up to you to see it through all the way to the end. In my mind, I think that's not really an ethical way to do it, because at this stage, you haven't really given them anything other than information which says that property is available, you can get it for this price. Really what you're doing is helping that person buy the property, take control and ownership of that property. For example, it might be control, it could be purchasing, or it could be control via lease option or some kind of option contract. For example, whatever it is, you're helping them get the keys and start benefiting from that property. So the more that I can do to help make sure that they get the property that they want, then that justifies a fee, charging a fee for that particular process. So I think packaging is important, seeing it all the way through the end, because there's so many moving parts that you need to think about. There's going to be the person who's selling the property that you're working with. There might even be an estate agent in between as well. There's going to be their solicitors dealing with the sale. There's going to be a solicitor for the buyer. There's going to be the buyer themselves as well. There's going to be the buyer's mortgage broker. They're just a few people that come to mind, and you're overseeing all of these things. You're making sure everybody's doing what they need to do to get this deal completed and get it across the line. So when we come to talk about packaging, there's a lot of different moving parts that you need to manage to ensure that you're getting paid. Because if you're getting paid as a sourcer to find a deal, you're charging a couple of grand to find a property for somebody, but for some reason they don't end up completing on it, then how many times are you going to do that before your reputation is absolutely destroyed and people don't want to work with you? So that's my thoughts. Hope that helps on that. Let's get the next question and final question for this evening and this series. which is from Khalid. It's not from Khalid, it's from Facebook, which is from Faria. Faria, sorry, even.
Oh, very young.
Very young Faria. How's the property development market given the climate we're in? Are you finding it difficult to get hold of the council for permissions and locating reliable builders? So a few different questions there, Faria. In terms of how's the property development market, right now I'd say it's not the easiest, but there's always opportunities to be had. And that, when I say it's not the easiest, that can be a good thing because it puts a lot of people off. People don't want to do hard work. They want fast and easy results. But if you're prepared to put the graft and the effort in, you'll get the better deals that other people won't necessarily pursue. So the reason for that is because the market's very strong. As I talked about earlier on, there's lots of buyers, there's lots of cash out there. So the sellers are feeling very confident. There's plenty of people that want their property. So they're either asking for too much money in terms of what they want, or they want a bigger share of the deal. And ultimately what that means, it becomes less and less viable for the developer to be able to purchase and do that deal. Then in terms of council with regard to planning permission, well, planning permission is what it is. That as long as you understand what the rules and the criteria is, and you're making an application that's likely to work, you've got good people advising you, like planning consultant, for example, it's likely you're going to get what you are looking for on that as long as it's realistic. So I don't think that's really an issue. The third part you mentioned, I think, was builders. Builders, yes, is a little bit of a challenge right now because material prices are higher as well, and lots of people having work done to their properties, so the trades are busy, so there's a shortage of good trades. And this is where we've got a relationship with people you work with time and time again. It makes it much easier when you're doing projects. So I think, yes, in short, yeah, there are challenges in property development, but I think there's always been challenges in property development, and they're just different types of challenges at different times. But those that are prepared to work their way through those issues and challenges, they're the ones that get the results. So I hope that makes sense. Great session, thanks. Thank you very much for that. So hopefully I'll be seeing you very, very soon, probably not on camera like this, because this is our last session now, but maybe you'll come and join us this Saturday at our workshop where I'll be sharing the strategies that I'll be using next year and the ones I think you should be using as well. Or maybe you'll be joining us on the 18th of January at the property meet at the Edgbaston Cricket Stadium, where we'll have lots of great networking, another great speaker lined up, which I'm not allowed to announce just yet because we're still waiting for the contract to be signed. And I'll be sharing some strategies around how to make 2022 your best year yet. And remember, there's lots of great content on our social media platforms to help you in your property investing journey, to ultimately help you get further faster. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you very soon.